German industry? Is it emerging from the crisis stronger than before? In the interview, Federation of German Industry's president, Hans-Peter Keitel.
Mr. Keitel, Germany celebrates 20 years of German unification on October 3rd. How do you remember that date?
I remember the fall of the wall even more clearly. At that time, I was in Warsaw on a trip to sign a contract on expanding the airport there. That night, Chancellor Helmut Kohl had to return to Berlin suddenly, and none of us knew what was going on there. It was a momentous event. And then there was the whole dynamic that developed from that, and the entire process of reunification that followed. And I still clearly recall how I and my two small children sat in front of the TV to commit that historic night to memory.
Has unity been achieved from an economic viewpoint?
I don't think it's been fully achieved, but it would be wrong not to see that we've come a very long way. The economic performance in the east of the country is twice what it was back then. We now have to work hard together on completely closing the gap that is left.
It's also a big day for your organization. It's German Industry Day, and many guests are here. Ties between politics and business aren't always tension-free. Both sometimes feel misunderstood. One frequent source of friction is energy policy. What do you think has to be done? What signals do you expect from policymakers?
In technology, tension and energy are part of the same thing. A little tension doesn't hurt. But I believe that today it's clear that we have pretty similar views. Namely, that the government's energy concept is extremely demanding, and that we can make it happen only if we all work together. And I mean normal people as well as big corporations. We're talking about many billions of euros in costs, and those billions of euros have to be earned before they can be invested. But on one point we agree completely. We want to develop renewable energies and move away from emissions that harm the climate, and towards a sensible climate policy.
But German industry is being accused of trying to rake in bigger profits by extending the lifespan of nuclear reactors. What do you say?
Look at the investments. They were in the billions for the nuclear power plants. You don't have to be a genius to see that instead of throwing away those investments, you'd rather keep using them. So that's true enough. But that's also where the money we will need to invest in sustainable industry one day is going to come from. You have to understand that we're going to need a grid capacity to transmit energy in Germany that's 5 times bigger than what we have today. And the money has to come from somewhere. I believe the criticism of extending the reactor's operation is superficial and political.
Do you think the new energy concept does what has to be done, or are we still just beginning?
Both are correct. First, it's important to have an integrated energy concept. The first one we've had for 30 years, by the way. Now we have a basis. So in that sense, we're just starting. We have a basis on which to discuss and argue about whether this or that detail is feasible. For example, we'll see whether the premise of having a climate treaty by 2020, at least in Europe, is realistic. If it isn't, we'll have to adjust our course. We must talk about these things, and it's moving forward now.
So Germany going its own way in energy doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and it's not even possible. And this isn't just the argument of the industrial sector. It's completely obvious. If here in Germany we suddenly had completely different energy prices than in the countries around us, then why would anyone still produce in Germany? Jobs would be exported. We will back up our pledges of greener production and investment in green energies. Now we have to see what steps are feasible.
Currently, Germany is Europe's economic engine. Germany's image is also very good abroad. Why is the mood so bad here?
I can't explain it. I warned about it. It's almost a reflex reaction to protest against everything, to talk only about redistributing wealth. During the crisis, we were all on the same page. We were much closer together. Perhaps we need to be clear that this crisis isn't over and that we'll need to continue making an effort after the crisis. I feel like Germany is relaxing a little and saying, let's return to yesterday's issues. They were so nice. We protested against the expansion of Frankfurt Airport and so on. Why do we need all these big projects anyway? Well, we do need them. Otherwise, we can forget the energy program and lots of other things.
Your group represents over 100,000 German companies, many of them mid-size. How did these mid-size firms withstand the crisis?
German mid-sized companies performed especially well. In preparing this event, we found that some 1,500 medium-sized companies are the market leaders worldwide in their respective sectors. That's a lot of outstanding individual entrepreneurs and many innovative workers driven by global competition to give their best. This sum of genius, entrepreneurial spirit, and hard work is what moves us forward.
But you say conditions need to be right for these medium-sized businesses. What's missing?
We must be clear that the crisis came partly because there were framework conditions in the financial sector that weren't always upheld. In the social market economy, the state is there to provide firm guidelines and make sure they're respected, but in a way that gives the economy enough room to breathe.
Do you think politicians are listening to you enough regarding the necessary conditions?
Yes, we have plenty of opportunities to talk sensibly with politicians. Sometimes that's overinterpreted. People think lobbyists are dictating policy. Then another time we'll be criticized for having no contact at all. None of that is true. We carry on a discussion every day. We know our respective positions very well. We don't always have to spell everything out to each other. We often sense what the others are thinking and what their problems are. The question is whether we can get the support we need in the broader discussion needed in a parliamentary democracy. And on that point, politicians think in different time frames than we do.
So things move too slowly for you?
No, but politicians think in terms of legislative periods and are mostly focused on the next elections. For us, that makes no difference. We think beyond election cycles.
Finally, we're here at German Industry Day. You've demanded that Germany must become a land of investment again. What do you mean by that?
I think every person returning to Germany from abroad notices how Germany is falling behind in transport infrastructure, for example. For years, our autobahns and railroads have been getting too little investment. And broadband networks, communications, energy grids are all investment projects that are being blocked in Germany, sometimes by popular protests. If we don't do something soon, infrastructure in Germany is going to fall behind, and that means we in industry will no longer have the ideal conditions that we have today.
Mr. Keitel, thanks for talking with us.